Hi, I'm Ken Mertzel, Global Industry Leader for Financial Services at Automation Anywhere. I can relate to the journey that most of you are going through since I've spent my entire career in finance. Prior to joining Automation Anywhere 2.5 years ago, I spent 15 years at Bank of America, half of that as CFO of the insurance group, and then most recently worked for the Chief Accounting Officer, where I managed financial operations and also helped to implement the first proof of concept of RPA in finance. Prior to that, I was in the Accenture's financial services strategy practice, and before that at Progressive Insurance in finance. So I know today you've been talking about how finance leaders can spend more of their time on analysis. And what I wanted to do in the next 20 minutes is talk about how intelligent automation is enabling organizations to make that happen. Before doing so, for those of you that aren't familiar with Automation Anywhere, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about our company. We are the global leader in robotic process automation. But I know when I was in industry, lots of vendors came to us all claiming to be number one. So don't take my word for it. Take a look at many of these research studies conducted by third-party analysts who follow the RPA industry for more information. In terms of the statistics you see here, I think the ones that really stand out the most to me certainly are our global presence with over 4,000 customers across the world. But in addition, you can see, we could arguably say that we're one of the largest digital employers in the world with over 2.6 million bots deployed. Before I talk about further about automation and RPA, I wanted to make sure that everyone's familiar with what RPA is. RPA is simply productivity software that sits on top of existing systems and performs a lot of manual, repetitive, often data-intensive processes traditionally performed by individuals. The example I often like to give is think about a Excel macro, but on steroids. So if you're an invoice processor and every day you go into your system, enter your ID, download some information, create a report, upload that back into the system, and send an email to your supervisor letting you know that that task's done, the RPA bots can do exactly the same thing at the click step level. So it can create emails, etc. And I think the key to the technology is the fact that it's very easier to use. It's basically drag and drop technology and very quick to implement. So if you think about the various tasks that you might do that are very repetitive day in and day out, if you see any of these types of activities, those are probably lend themselves very well to RPA. So as I mentioned, sending emails, actually opening emails and extracting attachments and data from those attachments, doing any type of copying and pasting, filling in forms, moving data from one database to another, all of those tasks lend themselves well towards RPA. So often when we think about where technology is going, we don't think about RPA standalone, but we think about it more from a standpoint of an entire overall digital workforce. And there are really 4 key capabilities you need to implement a digital workforce. So first of all, you certainly need to determine where automation should be applied. And so, for example, within our platform, we have something called Discovery Bot, which helps you determine which processes might be best for automation. So you can use that to actually map out processes, design the process you want to automate, and actually leveraging the recorders actually be able to create an automation. Secondly, you need to capture data, and often that data is sitting in unstructured or semi-structured forms in PDF files or emails. And so another key element, for example, within our platform is IQBot, where you can use advanced technology to actually extract that information from those documents and be able to leverage that then for further RPA automation. And so this technology typically leverages behind the scenes sophisticated things such as machine learning and computer vision to really increase the throughput rate over historical OCR technology. The third key component, which we'll be talking a lot about today, is RPA itself. And that really comes in 2 flavors. Historically, companies have used unattended automation, meaning you run a bot, it runs in the background, does its thing, and then you come back to it afterwards. Or the current trends and future trends are really around attended automation. So that's where you're actually able to utilize a bot in real time while you're interacting perhaps with a customer or a colleague, and leverage that to pull all the information you need in real time and perform tasks while you're performing, while you're in discussions with customers or coworkers. And then lastly, it's really important to have analytical capabilities. So built, for example, into the platform is something we call Bot Insights. So basically smart analytics not only gives you information in terms of how the bots are performing, but more importantly, given all the data flowing in the system, it can actually give you real-time dashboards to give you insights on your business itself. So next I want to talk about how this technology is being applied in finance. And finance actually is the largest user of RPA globally. In fact, 27% of all our RPA software license revenues is focused on the finance and accounting function. And I think the reason for that, as you all probably know, finance leaders are facing a lot of challenges, particularly in the current environment. With the pandemic, all companies really have been facing some type of macroeconomic pressure, and therefore finance and all other operations have really been focused on business continuity and finding ways to continue to grow their business. In addition, given these pressures, there's been even more focus around liquidity and capital adequacy. So leveraging the technology to improve and determine current status of cash flow. In addition, finance and really the entire company has always been focused on expense management, and I think that's even more case today. And so these technologies are being leveraged to really help transform operations. In addition, finance is heavily focused around risk and compliance. Very important, obviously, that they're complying with all regulatory and accounting standards. And then lastly, finance is always under pressure to strengthen governance and ensure timely and accurate reporting. So with that, let's see how RPA can be applied to meet those challenges. First of all, when organizations start using RPA, in fact, it's often the finance organization bringing the technology in-house. Certainly the initial focus is around operational efficiency. So how can you streamline processes and reduce costs? But I think finance in particular recognizes significant additional benefits result from RPA. So first of all, we talked about the importance of timeliness. And RPA has really helped to accelerate the financial close by streamlining operations and really providing more timely information for the business. In addition, I've seen many organizations that are, their number one goal is really to use RPA to strengthen governance, replace manual controls, and tighten them to ensure, accuracy and regulatory compliance. In addition, RPA is often leveraged to really foster innovation and use it as the platform to then expand into additional intelligent automation capabilities. And then lastly, organizations really are leveraging RPA to empower human capital. As you were all talking about earlier, the real focus is to automate a lot of those repetitive activities and then enable people to spend more time on true value-added analysis. One of the most common questions I'm asked is where should I start? Where can RPA be applied in finance and accounting? So I won't go through all of these, but these are typical use cases that we see across the finance organization. So starting on the left in procure to pay or accounts payable, it's probably the most common area of focus for RPA. And I think that's because that function is so, again, data intensive and manual intensive. And so if you look at accounts payable, probably the most common area of focus is around invoice validation. So as invoices come in from vendors, being able to extract the data from those invoices, match that then to goods receipts, match it to the purchase order so you can validate it, and then process that for payment. That's a very common use case. Similarly, order to cash is a close second, so within the accounts receivable area. So whether that's for setting up new customers, creating invoices, or often increasingly being used to support the collections activities. And then thirdly, in record to report, it's being used across the board. I'd say first and foremost within financial operations, so assisting with the general ledger close, particularly around automating manual reconciliations as well as manual journal entries. In addition, there's increased focus lately around treasury operations. So I mentioned the importance of cash and understanding your cash position. And so RPA is being used to consolidate information from across different banks and then be able to create a consolidated cash position report in real time. In addition, we're seeing a lot of interest in tax operations. It tends to be more focused around provisioning tax data or creating filings, less so around tax accounting itself. And then lastly, while there's a lot of applicability in financial planning and analysis to create budgeting and forecasting and variance analysis, it can also be leveraged to assist with management reporting, but often organizations will start in sort of the left side of the chart because you're looking for sort of areas where there's higher frequency, more manual activity, and bigger opportunities for scale. I mentioned about accounts payable, and so specifically in that area, typically where we see customers benefiting are certainly in terms of reducing the cost per invoice and processing those invoices. But equally important benefits are around eliminating processing errors because you're avoiding that manual keying, avoiding late payments, and maintaining good relationships with your vendors and suppliers. And then lastly, real key is really freeing up capacity. So capacity of your employees who are spending a lot of time in that manual entry, and again, can spend more time on really those much more complex invoices and analyzing how those should be handled. I wanted to give you one case study example here, and this is Australia Post, so the postal service in Australia. And they really want to do two things. So one is certainly handle the huge volume of back office processes that they've had to maintain within finance, but also free up their employees to focus on much more strategic work. And so what they did is they sent up a center of excellence. They educated across the organization what RPA is and how it could be applied, and then identified processes across the finance function where RPA could be used. And where they are now is they have over 25 processes automated, leveraging about 120 bots. And they're using it across a variety of processes, including, booking financial journal entries, managing credit and booking credit entries to process customer payments, and also managing in terms of inventory management. And you can see significant benefits. So they've freed up over 18,000 hours annually. And again, that time can then be used more strategically by their employees and also reduce costs by over 15%. So next I want to talk a little bit about where we see the future of finance going. And I think the real key in the future is you're going to see much more heavy use of intelligent automation. So marrying robotic process automation with other AI technologies to enable finance organizations to do a lot more strategic work. So, here are 4 examples. So first of all, moving from the focus around the month end or quarter end close to more of an instantaneous close by leveraging sort of real-time and automated journal entries. Second, I think for all of you that have been involved in the budgeting and forecasting process, you know that that's very time intensive, very manual effort, takes a long time across an organization to create a budget or a forecast. And I think where we see things moving is much more towards real-time budgeting and real-time forecasting, again, leveraging these technologies and leveraging bots to enable collaboration and real-time analysis. The third area of opportunity we see is around really enabling the business to do their own self-service reporting and analysis. So rather than leveraging the finance team to create management reports for them, being able to do that on their own. And the last area where we see intelligent automation being applied is really ultimately to eliminate nearly all manual data entry and report preparation. And again, the key to this is to enable finance professionals, again, who are highly trained and highly capable, to then focus on creating business insights and advanced analytics. One tool that we see to enable this in the future is around providing finance employees ultimately with their own digital assistant. So just how today nearly all finance employees leverage Excel macros, I see not too far off in the future where all employees will have their own digital assistant bot. One example you've seen is, for example, we just rolled out a product called ARI, or Automation Anywhere Robotic Interface. And again, that enables all employees to have their own digital assistant, just how people in their personal lives use Siri or Alexa. And again, you can see that'll be able to be leveraged across any type of platform, mobile, apps, web, etc. So lastly, I want to spend a little time talking about what are we seeing as the key steps to successful implementation of these technologies. And I think the first thing, and I mentioned it was one of the first steps they did at Australia Post, is selecting the right processes. So again, you want to focus on those processes that are manual, repetitive, data intensive. You don't necessarily need to automate an entire end-to-end process. But you want to pick those parts of the processes that maybe are sort of acting as barriers to efficiency, and automate those. They certainly need to be rules-based. If they require a significant amount of human judgment, maybe you'll just automate those initial portions of the processes, and then people can jump in to then carry the process from there. And you certainly want very strong business sponsorship for those processes you've selected, since you really are going to need to leverage the time of individuals in the operations who are very knowledgeable about that process, and so you're going to need business support. Second, we recommend that our customers start small and scale fast. Again, this is a very common concept in innovation. So you want to do a proof of concept. So get the organization comfortable with RPA. Again, you're not so much proving the technology is mature, but getting a quick win early on, creating perhaps a demo that you can show others in terms of how it works. And then after that, then quickly identify opportunities for scale. So again, look for those areas where you have high volume, high frequency, very time intensive activities. And then lastly, the key is really to organize for success. So you want to start off maybe creating a small center of excellence with some key skill sets. So obviously knowledge of RPA, having some technical capabilities. Again, the good news about RPA is you don't need to be an IT professional to actually create a bot. Very much drag and drop. Typically, bots can be created in a matter of 8 to 12 weeks. The actual coding itself can be done in a matter of days. It's more of the process design that's key. But you certainly need people within your center organization who are familiar with the technology. And probably the most key skill is around program and change management to manage your overall automation efforts. And in addition, we strongly recommend that you create sort of a federated organization. What we mean by that is that in addition to your strong, central center of excellence, you then want to appoint automation leads in each of the different areas within your finance organization or across your company as a whole. Again, individuals have been, educated in what RPA is, what types of opportunities would work for automation, and then help them work with the businesses themselves to help prioritize those opportunities, even do some of the initial design. And then the actual coding can be done either in the business units or centrally with the centers of excellence. So I think those are really three key elements to getting off to a strong start in RPA. So with that, I wish you a lot of success in your RPA journey, and I appreciate your attention and hope you all have a great day.